Hello, and welcome to Dingers and Discourse, your one-stop shop for everything Mario Superstar Baseball. We're here for another great episode, and I could not be more happy to introduce your four other hosts here today. You have Krazzy, the man himself, Remke, the now proclaimed top player in Mario Baseball, Clutch 1908, always tiled about something, and your Stars-On legend, the Brew man himself. We are nice to have another episode this week, and let's go get it started. We have our first topic being our weekly roundup, and I think we'll start with the mid-tier mania here, a mid-tier tournament for B-tier and below. It's kind of a first tournament of its kind, similar to Rookie Rumble, being that one C-tier and below, but this one kind of opening up a little bit more, and hosted by Sam N, first-time TO. Did a really good job. So let's talk about that a little bit. The winner of that being the 13th seeded Faceman. No one, I believe, thought that he was going to win that at all. Now, we can break it down a little bit. He did beat one of the top players in that tournament, being Walrus, twice, to send him to losers finals and to keep the championship away from him in grand finals. I know some of you guys might have watched that. Anything you took from Faceman's gameplay that kind of elevated him a little bit more to take down the top names?
I played Faceman in Triple Play League and just across the ranked eco space. And it's always a competitive game. So I didn't get a chance to watch that game specifically, but I know how Walrus plays, and he has his own kind of style that I would say is probably the closest thing we have to competitive non-meta, like off-meta. He doesn't do anything too crazy, but Walrus definitely doesn't subscribe exactly to what everyone does. He is definitely an old head in the community. And so I think it's an impressive win for Faceman to kind of bring this up, and I think the overall statement to take away from this tournament is the deeper we get into the ranked ladder, so starting with B tier, the more compressed that these people are, and how it could be anyone's day. And it was Faceman's day in this tournament. 2 days it ended up being.
Yeah, I mean, again, like you said, I've played Faceman a couple times, and he does a couple things that are a little unorthodox. Like I think he makes Diddy lefty, which I don't know if that really does anything, because like Diddy pitches straight down the middle. He doesn't have sidearm or anything like that. Like he literally does a flip and does it straight underhand. But with Walrus being one of the OGs of the community, wasn't he NPSS 1 champion? Right? Is that correct?
I thought it was 3.
It might be 3.
It's
like
1.
But he's like one of the OGs, and was in the finals and won one of the very early NPSSs. And to be able to take him down as someone, relatively newer to the community is a pretty big deal.
Yeah. And I think Walrus, I don't want to say he doesn't try most of the time, but I feel like this is one of those ones where he really wanted to win, because I feel like he kind of felt like he should win almost in a sense. Because I think he thinks his elo's a bit lower than it kind of represents of his real skill.
Right. Yeah, Walrus is really fun to play against. I have a lot of fun playing against him. We chat a lot when we play. But a couple things I've noticed about Walrus is he plays Mario Baseball as if it's real baseball. Like he always gets mad at me when I hit pitches that are balls and way off the plate, or I'm swinging on 0-2 counts and things like that, where he's just a baseball purist and loves to work the count, things like that, loves to lean into pitches. But he's super fun to play against, and I really like playing against him. He he does a lot of good work in the game.
Yeah, he just needs to play a little bit more, I think. He does think his elo is a little too low for what it is, but he just needs to commit more to the game. I feel like he just doesn't play enough as it is. He's mostly on the side now doing other stuff, but still has passion for the game, which is, very good to see. He just needs to put a little bit more effort, I think, into it, and develop what people are using as meta. I know he picks a lot of characters that aren't necessarily like what you see every game. Those are comfort picks, but still, you need to pick the top tier players to help you out as best you can.
Yeah, for sure. But then the other big, there were a couple other big runs from that tournament. In top 8, there was a 29 seed, none other than the Bowser Jr. Stan herself, Cammy, making a big losers run, big run from losers side to get to top 8. I don't remember who she lost to in top 8, but yeah, it was a great run. She took down some pretty good names too. I believe she took down Riley Scott, who was the number 3 seed, if I'm not mistaken, behind
22.
Riley.
I have it right here.
What was I forget?
Riley was the 22 seed. Yeah,
22 seed. Okay, I was mistaken there then. But yeah, I mean, Riley was a favorite to overperform his seed, albeit that didn't necessarily happen. Sorry, Riley, we're flaming you once again. Maybe play better in tournament. But no, we're just messing with you. But yeah, big run from Cammy. Other runs from Jacques, Deschmutz, Boomerang Bro, who was a bit of a smurf getting into this tournament. I believe he was pitching Bowser and Hammer Bro for most of the tournament. So that was an interesting run that he made. Maury also had a good run from all the way to winner side top 8. And yeah, it was a fun tournament to watch. Fun to see, like when you have like mid to high level players playing in a tournament without like the top level players, it's really interesting to see the upsets that happen and to see like the game get played with like that skill level. It's, I think a game between similarly skilled players is really, really fun to watch, no matter what skill level it is.
I think some of these players also got buried by the large community growth in the past couple months. I think these players would have been more noticed in a previous life. They would have joined the Discord sooner and been part of the competitive scene sooner. Because I think there's some players that back in that day would have rated higher simply because there are less people at their skill level. Maybe lower because they would have faced more games against some of the top players, but it's really nice seeing, I think people have a pretty good understanding of like tier 1 players and then like that next tier, and there's like one tier below that I think is pretty well defined, and I think everyone in the community knows, but then and that's like A tier players, and then after that I don't think people really know how the community goes. And I think those are some players that like, those are the people you need to watch out for like you said, like if there's some single day tournaments that like some of the top players aren't playing in, they could be threats. With some practice and growth, they could become threats. And so I think it's kind of nice seeing, like I said, a different pool of players and seeing, what else the community has to offer other than the top competitive mainstays. It's really fun to look back at the bracket and see just who's advancing and who's making runs.
It's also been a long time since we had like we've had a lot of small tournaments, but no like big, like net play superstars. We're taking a big break, which I think we need. It's very good, but we just haven't had that. It's been so relevant the past, months. So we're really seeing growth. When you have a longer period of time growth, you see a lot more the rise of it, and I think it's really showing in that tournament. I'm very looking forward to what future tournaments may bring to them.
And if I can interject as a self-proclaimed old head, as Clutch put it, and I like that term. There was about a month where I was away from the Discord, And when I came back, there were all these new players who were competing. And so message to people like me who just play for fun, and I'm never going to stop playing for fun, but there are a lot of people who are starting to grind this game and who are getting really good. It's a lot of fun because competition is good.
Agreed.
Just makes it better.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to something more Brewers type, being Stars on Showdown 7. It's not done yet. That's how the tournament always works. It always goes on for a little too long. But hey, we're down to the final 3, being Remke, Boomerang Bro, and Brewa. So it's going to be a big game with Remke and Boomerang Bro for that final spot for Grand Finals. And then, Brew, you're going to verse the loser there. Let's talk a little bit about some of the big names of the tournament. We have Nuche 17 having like a amazing run in the tournament, falling to Winkley and then Stuffed Flatbread, but having a big upset versus, I think it's the number 1 seed, Chris Toasty. That is like astonishing. Very good performance. Nuche being a very big stat head, just putting it to him there. He's got both ends of the wits. He can do it. It's just saying that, I think Starzon's untapped. You just have to figure out how your opponent's playing. You can do very well. Remke, Brew, I know you guys are still in the tournament still. How are you guys feeling with, being down to the final 3?
Yeah, I mean, tournament's not over yet. Stars on tournament always goes on forever. Sorry, Stars on players have lives. But yeah, it's been a fun tournament. It's Stars on is, again, it's the meta isn't fully developed. It's not nearly as developed as Stars Off. And we keep on figuring out new things. I talked about previously the kind of bell curve of charge hitting versus slap hitting in Stars On, and about how we're kind of going back down to more slap hitting, and realizing that, slap hits, while not as consistent as Stars Off, are still very viable in Stars On, especially with characters that aren't often getting it over the fence. But yeah, it's been a really fun tournament, and it's been really fun, like, applying some of the new strategies that we've kind of been figuring out in Stars On.
Yeah, I've noticed, especially in my round versus Remke, I felt the mind games more there this time. He went Peach Gardens and then Bowser Castle back to back. So immediately going with the more defensive structured maps, and my offense struggled. So, I'm really looking forward to hopefully getting another crack at it to see if I can counter that. I won't go into detail. Still, maybe next
Can't
time
reveal the strategies.
we can dive into that if it works. If not, you might not see me.
Yeah. To be honest about the meta, I feel like first pick is more heavy oriented and can build a better home run hitting team. So when you picked first pick in both of those games, my counter was to go to a large stadium and prevent you from just going Bowser and cranking home runs like you would on DK Jungle or Mario's or whatever stadium. And Peach Garden and Bowser Castle really shuts down Bowser. So that kind of limits his stock as the first overall pick.
Absolutely.
There was a great highlight. I think I don't remember if it got clipped and posted in highlights yet, from Bowser Castle of Donkey Kong. He had a great half inning. He had a big clamber catch in the field, and then he had a huge diving catch into Chem Laser from center field to absolutely gun the attempted sac fly. It was a absolute laser to home.
Cut me down on all fronts. And to piggyback off that, I have seen you in the Discord recently advocating for more defensive-minded lineups. I think at least one game you went Birdo Yoshi middle infield, which I spoke about a couple weeks ago. Falcon doing to me that just stifled my offense. And as someone, I want to win the games how I want to win the games. I'm going to have to break myself a little bit to draft more defense, draft defense higher up. But what you got to do.
And I know I'm not like really a Starzon main, but I feel like recently, like Brewy, you said Remke's been talking about like defensive lineups. I think we're starting to see Starzon as more of like a defensive oriented game mode, at least compared to Stars Off, which is kind of crazy in a sense. Because you would think in a game mode where everyone can hit home runs, offense would drive everything crazy and there would be way more runs. But in Starzon, it feels like if you're a defensive player, you're going to like it more. And I think that's a really good option for people who are looking at something other than Stars Off to play.
Yeah, I would say that's kind of the old school versus new school divide that we're seeing. I know Peach Beach struggled a little bit in this tournament. Him and I come from the same background, so I know he's just drafting all offense, and people are catching up to that and figuring out how to counter it.
Yeah.
I did have the double kill over the Integrosity Bros this
back
tournament.
To back too.
The double, yep. But yeah, it's been a very fun tournament, so I'm excited to see how the top 3 shakes out.
Yeah, I can say myself, like, I've been impacted by that offensive orientated thing. Cammy beat me 2-1, and it was like the example of it being I lost 3-0 Peach Gardens, I won 10-0 at Wario and a Mercy, and then I lost 2-1 at Bowser. So like, it just showed my offense struck at Wario, but Peach Gardens, Bowser, it sucked. So that's a good play style. I'm not gonna be mad about it anymore. I've learned from it. So definitely lots to learn in Starzon, and I can't wait to see how it goes in Starzon Showdown 8. So let's move on to something that happened just yesterday, and it involves 2 of our hosts, being Krasy and Remke, and this was the battle for your best Mario Superstar Baseball player for Season 2. And you 2 want to go into it? Because I know you guys had a little bit of an agreement beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'll start off with saying I agreed to it. And because he won the set, I think Remke's the best player in the world right now. I think he played phenomenally. I think we both did. I think I heard Remke say this. It's the highest level that this game's ever seen, like skill-wise, and I really agree with that sentiment. I feel like we both brought our A games, and I don't know, but I hope it was an entertaining match to watch because I would assume it was.
Oh yeah, I rewatched it on Riley's VODs, and one really interesting takeaway I had from it is like, I agree that we were both on our A game. We were both playing really well. I had a couple moments where like, early in the set it was like I was mistiming my heavies hits and like not really connecting great, but that was because of Krasy's pitching, and like, whenever Krasy didn't connect right, it was because of my pitching. Like, it wasn't just like we mess up our timings. Like, obviously we did, but it's like it was outside influence that impacted that from each other. And a really, really interesting takeaway from this is that in 5 games, we played a full best of 5. We went to 5 games. Neither one of us scored more than 8 runs. And you look at us, and I think maybe Hells or like one other person might be higher than me. But for the last 30 days, I believe Krasy and I are number 1 and number 2 for average runs scored per game. For the last 30 days of games that we've played. And like that, for both of us to hold each other to 8 runs or under for every single game is a testament to how like defensive this game. Like we talked just a few weeks ago about how rampant offense is right now. But we're already starting to evolve the meta a little more and get better on defense, better with pitching, and like more like pixel perfect, more frame perfect, more precise every single game we play. And it's really, really interesting how developed this game is getting with the mind games we play with each other.
The series differential was +5 Remke, and that came off the heels of a 6-0 shutout in Game 4. To tell you how close that series was, the remaining games were all within 3 runs. Game 2 was a huge comeback for Remke. Legitimately, that 5-game series wasn't as insane as it could have been. Remke and I were actually breaking it down earlier today, just the two of us recapping, because I had the chance to commentate a few of the games later in the series. And I said, I was watching Game 1, and I'm like, okay, Krazie's got this. And then I was watching Game 2 early, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go grab something, because Game 2 seems over at this point. It was very early when Krasie has a huge lead. I come back and sit down, and next thing I know, it's 7-6, and I'm like, all right, we got a series. And it's exactly what happened. It felt like, again, there was a little bit of a feeling out process. I think Krasie had a bit of an advantage during that time, but once the two of them really like felt each other, like, okay, this is what Remke's doing right now, this is what Krasie's doing right now, this is what Krasie's trying to prioritize in the draft, this is what Remke's trying to prioritize in drafting. Just you could tell the gears were spinning on the mound for pitching, at the plate with where we're positioning and going. And then especially if you don't like watching long drafts, I don't suggest watching the draft at Game 5. But if you really like the detailed thought process, I mean, it took so long that us as commentators, we were able to actually talk about the draft. Like, I feel like sometimes it goes so quick, you like miss a pick and you're like, wait, why? How did we get from here to here? And then we have to go back and piece it together. But like, you two were thinking so long and so hard because you had so much data from the first 4 games and just knowing tendencies, because you two have played each other enough outside of that or have watched enough each other playing. It, like I said, Remke said it was the best Mario Baseball played to date. And I said for 2 reasons I think that is true. One, I think there's been only one other time in Mario Baseball net play history that you could say number 1 and number 2 had a really good like set of games or consistent games. And that'd be Cactus Matty Ice. And they didn't have a 5-game series like this ever. I think they might have played in the Net Play Classic Summer League, but that's lost to time.
They had a 7-game series.
They had a 7-game.
Is that okay? So, but the other reason I said it might have been the best since then was not only did we get 1 against 2 in a 5-game set, so a longer set. Since Cactus and Maddie played that 7-game set, think of how much this game has evolved, and we've gone from playing like vanilla Mario Baseball to a defined meta Mario Baseball. And I think that's why it was such high level, is because just we've advanced so much. I think it's noticeable by the fact that, Maddie just won the in-person tournament and Cactus is still a huge threat. And Maddie, when he's actively playing, I think is still a huge threat, but they have technically been passed up as 1 and 2 by Krasie and Remke, who've really mastered the meta. And I think they can hop back in. Like I said, I'm not trying to count them out. No one take that as that. And by the way, I can't wait to see the call out from this week's Charge the Mound happen on the next week. But I think, like I said, just for the reason that there's so much more depth to this game that we understand now and could talk about during that set, I think that's why it might be one of the best products we have to date. And it's coming off the heels of, like I said, the meetup, where that was some incredible baseball too, just because it was in person and all the changes since then that we have learned. And it was put on for a good show in person, and then we just had a great show for an online event. And so really great couple weeks for Mario Baseball.
Yeah. Krasie, I have an honest question for you. If I did not pick Dixie in front of King Boo, were you picking her?
Wasn't thinking about it when you were considering taking Dixie right there and when you did. But after you took her, I was like, oh, I probably wouldn't have even taken her. To be completely honest, that was my initial gut reaction.
Mhm.
But thinking back, I might have, had I like thought about it a tiny bit longer, had you
Right, like
not gotten her.
if I snap pick KB, I'm thinking to myself, do I really in this game 5 deciding set want to pitch Green Noki? And the answer was no. So I knew your King Boo was on fire. I knew you were like hitting the crap out of the ball with him. My hope, my logic was I want my pitcher. And I think it really came to fruition, and because it really shut down everyone besides King Boo. And I think that's a really funny outcome from that game was King Boo had that perfect smack. My main hope was that you would get a couple more low trajectories like I was getting in the first 3 games. But that's just part of the game at that point. But yeah, that perfect smack was crushed and it was a great hit. But I stand by that Dixie Kong pick. I did not want to be pitcherless, so I wanted my comfort pitcher, and I think it paid off despite the reach.
I think that Game 5 draft. Sorry, were you going to say something?
Oh, go ahead.
I think that Game 5 draft is probably the craziest thing like I've seen in terms of drafting, because obviously you had been going PD Yoshi most of the time, which is already kind of an obscure, like interesting draft line that you've been testing. But after that Game 4, in Game 4 you went PD Yoshi, and Yoshi just shut down pretty much everything.
Yep.
And when I chose second pick, I pretty much wanted to get Yoshi with my third pick. I didn't even think about anything. It was pretty much just an emotional draft to the point where I was so frustrated that I almost had to have him on my team. And I also knew that I wasn't hitting well with PD, so I decided to go DK. And I've honestly never seen DK Yoshi draft line before, ever. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why that draft just turned out as interesting as it did.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm not a fan of DK Yoshi draft line. I have tested it. I've mock drafted it on my own time. I think I've mock drafted it with you and maybe Clutch a few times. The problem is you're giving Bowser team PD and Bro. We've theorized PD Bro draft line, right? We've theorized that way. Clutch has a whole video on that. Check out his YouTube channel, Clutch 1908. And he has a whole video on it. But imagine PD Bro, but you're adding the best character in the game as well. That is the easiest character to hit home runs with by far. And that's just really, really good and really, really hard to overcome. DK, as much as people say it, I do not like DK as a power hitter. He is a slap hitter through and through. The only time is if he has Chem and Yoshi is in left field. If Yoshi is in left field, I can't understand swinging for the fences because Yoshi really just shuts down Donkey Kong. But yeah, that PD Yoshi line, I said it in the post game interview, but huge shout out to Colby 2D who suggested that draft line to me. I had never thought about it before, and he said it, and I was like, no. Why? We've already theorized DK Yoshi. It doesn't work. Why would PD Yoshi work? Well, because PD is a better power hitter than DK. And the problem with DK Yoshi is you're giving Bowser all the power hitters. But when we just said that DK is not really a power hitter, he's more of a slap hitter, and Yoshi shuts him down, why not? So I had been playing it every now and then. I'd been testing it out on some ranked games, and I thought, why not? Now's the time better than ever to really try this in top level play, and I feel like it paid off. It worked. It was a fun draft. But that was a really and then the game 5 draft was just crazy. It was so much consideration on my part and both of our parts really on how we wanted to build our team. And I could talk for so long. Me and Clutch talked about it earlier, but I could talk for so long about the thought process on every single one of my decisions in that draft. But I could explain each and every character on that team and why I had them on that team. But obviously we don't have time for that right now. But yeah, that is something that I could just go into for so long. But ultimately, the set was phenomenal. Like we said, highest level of Mario Baseball that's ever been played. It was just like absolutely great play from Krasny, great pitching on both sides. And it was super, super fun to really break open the game like that and really kind of shake up the meta a bit with what we did. I think we really put like the people. If you didn't watch that set live, I highly, highly recommend going to Riley's channel, Riley Scott 64 on Twitch, and watching the VODs, because that really was, I believe, a prime example of how this game can be played and how this game should be played. Obviously people have their own strategies and their own tendencies that are different from me and Krasny. But I believe we really, really laid out a template of what this game looks like at the top level right now. But yeah, you got anything, Krasny, you want to add?
I think my main takeaway from the set, and I didn't even like realize this going in, but I think after that set, I have so much clarity on Yoshi being the fourth best character in the game. I think Yoshi's, at least for me, way better than Hammer Bro or Boomerang Bro, whoever you use. Just because if you're playing optimally, especially with like fielder swaps, Yoshi just shuts down so much stuff on offense that no one else in the game can even replicate. Maybe Birdo, but not even close to the same extent.
Doesn't have the speed. Doesn't have the same speed. Like that's the biggest thing. Like dive range is kind of close. Like it's still like a full unit away from, like more than a full unit away from Yoshi, I'm pretty sure. And if you're asking me, I might be on the opinion of Yoshi being the third best character in the game. I think if we are talking solely in a vacuum, I believe DK is 3. I believe DK is ahead of Yoshi. But when you consider the fact that Yoshi is a direct counter to Donkey Kong, then that, I believe, is what puts Yoshi above Donkey Kong in the tier list. But yeah, in a vacuum, obviously Donkey Kong is very versatile, much, much better slap hit, still very good on defense. But yeah, the things Yoshi can do on defense are just unmatched by any other character in the game. Not even close.
Yeah.
The one other last thing I want to talk about that I think I discovered, and I think I'm almost positive you discovered this too, Krasny. I believe there's every character has a data mined bat reach in the game. And I believe the shortest bat are the toads that are not red toad, with a unit of 0.45, whatever that means. I mean, you could ask Cokes or Peacock, whatever that means. And then it goes up and up, but that unit is every character has a bat reach that they can reach outside. And there's a lot of characters with a bat reach of 0.55. This includes Birdo, Mario, a handful of other characters with that bat reach. I believe that you can pitch a strike that they are unable to hit if you are standing in front of the box, in the front of the box. I think Krasny discovered this with Birdo, with lots of swings and misses that I felt should have connected with the ball. And I felt that if he didn't swing, would have been a strike. And I was very intrigued by that. There were so many, like, just literally pixels away from Birdo being able to connect with the ball, and it would have been a great frame 3, maybe even a slice. But her bat just didn't have the reach to get to the ball. And by the end of the series, Krasny went back of the box, middle of the box to try and counter this. But, obviously when you make a discovery like that mid-series, it's you haven't practiced timings. You haven't this is frame perfect stuff we're talking about. Like it's so hard to make a frame perfect adjustment delayed by exactly like 7 or 8 frames in the heat of the moment like that. But I think that was a really, really interesting discovery. I'd be interested to see the the modding / task community, like, the Matt Grease, the Vickless Falcons, Cokes, Peacock, any of like you coding guys. I would love to see the metrics on that. And if that is actually the case, if a 0.55 bat reach is actually, there's a strike they can't hit if they're in the front right of the box.
I'd be curious if there'd be a difference in frames. I wonder if they get out in front of it, if it's hittable. But if they are trying to go for frame 2, frame 3s, frame 4s, if that's when it's unhittable, because obviously when the ball is crossing the plate, that is farther to the right than when it is in front of the plate, which is typically, not even typically, if you're out of the front of the box, you're going to hit the ball in front of the plate if you're swinging early and going for frame 7, frame 8, frame 9s on your swings. So I think that is definitely a discovery that can be done when we can like just replicate ball coordinates every time and then just see like what happens. Which I believe we have the capability to do. It's just someone taking the time to set it up, because that is not an easy setup by any means.
Which again, it's absolutely crazy that we are making these discoveries about like close to near pixel perfect. I mean, definitely like close to frame perfect, like decisions and like discoveries of like we are getting close to like absolutely just pure optimal baseball, and it's so cool. Like I could geek out, nerd out over this frame data forever, but yeah, it's really cool to me.
All right, well, we're gonna move on to our first actual main discussion topic today, being Netplay Classic Season 2. Just started up by Ducky Don again. I'm helping him out over on the content side, but this is the first official week. Started on, I believe, let me get the date, Saturday the 25th. So a little bit after, on the day we released the episode number 3, that's when it started. A lot of the drafting and a lot of the trading going on, starting up. I want to talk about some of the drafts. I know you guys are in it a lot more, so I want you guys to go through it. And then maybe after we can talk about how some of the trades went. And we can talk a little bit about Starzon Classic as well after, if we have a little bit more time.
Raviannn, I have a question for you. Can you edit a picture of like the drafts that we had like right here into the podcast at like once we're done?
Yeah, I can do it once we're done. What I'll do right now
Nice.
is I'll move myself up, and then I can put the things below. So if you want to talk about them, go ahead.
Yeah. So comment who you think has the best team. We've got a couple. I believe it's just me, Clutch, and Krasy that are in the Classic League. I don't think Raviannn or Brew are in it. Me and Clutch are in the same league. Krasy's in the other division. With players like Hells, Cactus, Thanners, Cheeky, and is it Vickless?
Poke Bunny.
Who's Poke Bunny? Poke Bunny,
Yep.
that's right. And then Clutch's league is me, Clutch, Mr. Joe, Stuff Flatbread, Legendary Bolt, and Boomerang Bro. So we'll put those 2 leagues, their rosters, on the screen here soon for you, and comment who you think has the best teams and why. So we'll start with Clutch and I's league, where I am firmly of the opinion that Clutch has the worst team. He did a little.
Agreed.
He did a little bit of he tried to be a little bit Sam Presti on him with a lot of draft pick trades, and it did not exactly work out the best for him. I don't think, at least. He may have different opinions, but we'll let him talk about his team a little bit.
Yeah. So I think first pick is actually the worst draft spot in the Classic League, because by the time you come around to your next pick, that's at pick 12 and 13, those are still some pretty good characters, but then the time you come back around to that's like the high 20s, you're past most of your normally draftable meta characters.
24 and 25.
Yeah. So while your first round pick is pretty good, and then your second and thirds are okay, by the time the rest of your opponents have gone through rounds 3 and 4 and have picked up some really good characters, by the time you come back up at round 4, you're starting to take bottom of the barrel, like the duplicates and the players that normally don't sniff the field. So
I do want to say, if you didn't trade your picks, you would have had access to Green Paratroopa and the Pink Menace himself.
yes, so
those are definitely meta characters.
No, those are definitely meta characters in a classic draft, and also I guess so for the mentality, because otherwise people are gonna be like, yeah, this makes no sense. So I had Bowser double match, and so the rest of the way I wanted my team to go is I wanted to pick up Bowser Jr., and then I would have been fine with, and I mean, I say Green Para would have been nice, but any Para, any Koopa, couple the Dry Bones, and call it a day. Just get the Bowser Chem Squad going and have this crazy infield. For a classic league, a crazy infield of Madge, Bowser, Madge, BJ, left to right. Chem just flying all around. And so I had this plan in my head, and I'm like, well, then who am I going to pitch? And so I saw an opportunity to basically move way back in the draft, because I figured people didn't value Bones and non-star hittable Paratroopa and Koopa Troopas as highly as they obviously did. And so I'm going to move up. I'm going to get one of the monkeys. I picked Dixie for a slightly better bat. I think sidearm plays better in a classic setting. And also, I promise it wasn't a hate pick, but Remke is in our league. I had to consider that as well. That I saw an opportunity, I thought, to put myself in a clear number 1 spot if the draft went the way I did. And then people started what I considered, and I looked back at the numbers, it wasn't as bad of a reach as I thought. But there was a couple people that started reaching on Bones's and Bowser Jr., and it just kind of ruined my whole strategy. So I don't say I wouldn't have done it again. I think my strategy was sound. I think just the execution wasn't there, and I think planning so hard on guessing where people valued characters was my mistake. And so if I have any suggestions for any other classic league people, don't assume you know where people are going to value characters and assume that they will be there later in the draft. If you like a character and really want them, stay where you're at and pick them as high as possible without passing up on other characters that are better for your team.
Yeah, that's the logic I used when I drafted Green Noki on my team. I believe she went something like excuse me, like 17th overall or something like that. What would it be? 12, 13,
20.
14, 15, 16, 17, 18th overall.
18th. I can't count.
18th overall. And, you know, some people would consider that a reach. But where I was at in the draft, there weren't really any more pitchers. So I needed a pitcher really badly. And that was my pitcher of choice. That's one of my most comfortable pitchers that aren't the meta pitchers. And so I had to reach for her a bit because that's who I really wanted. I didn't know she might fall later, but I didn't want to take the risk. And that's kind of what you have to do with that, is decide, am I getting enough value from this character to warrant the reach versus the value I would get by taking, maybe the by the book best character on the board. What's kind of your strategy going into classic drafts? Because this is my first classic. I've never done a classic before. I don't know if Clutch has yet. But this is my classic. I know you've done it before.
I would say I was in the last classic in 64 League with a bunch of other players when I first joined. And so I actually think that was part of my issue, is I had a very warped sense of how people
I-
drafted.
I think Daisy went 4th overall, if I'm
That-
not
that
mistaken.
classic-
Yeah, so obviously I knew
Oh
some of
my.
those obvious ones wouldn't happen again, but I think I didn't think about how that would be a cascading effect on the rest of the draft and how some of the players that were probably less valued because they were only star hitters of kind of the bad duplicates get valued way more highly in a classic setting. And so I will say I thought that was a very interesting exercise, and I thought I was like, don't get affected by your last draft, but I think I did. And it really showed. And so practicing drafting is actually something you might want to do before you do a classic league if you want to take it that seriously. I think you can just have fun with your friends and just queue up and do a draft. But if you're in a competitive classic setting, I think practicing your drafting and doing some mock drafting just like you would for any other fantasy league is helpful.
And Remke, to answer kind of your question, I think my current like belief for classic leagues is pretty much taking the draft pick that you have, and with your first couple of picks, picking the best characters left on the board that you also like. Obviously, don't pick any characters you like hate or suck with. And then pretty much shaping your team around them. So like if you have to pick Bowser early, if you think that Bowser is the best player left on the board, you should pick Bowser and mold your team around him, whether that means getting a whole bunch of chem or like getting a bro maybe or trading for a bro. Or if you get like PD, trying to get King Boo and getting like a small stadium. And the other notable one like Birdo or Yoshi and like trying to get like singles bats with them. I think that's kind of like my main strategy for this classic. I saw Birdo was on the board. My two choices were Birdo or Yoshi, and I know how much I like Birdo captain, so I decided to go with that. And after that, I just decided to build my team around. All right, I'm gonna try and get on base a lot and drive all the runs in with Birdo Egg and with Madge Star because I also got Madge early.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much what I did last classic as well with Birdo and Yoshi.
By the way,
Yeah.
this is the drafts from the top division of NetPlay Classic League. Odyssey and Legends sit opposite each other, but they're like on the same tier. There are also 2 tiers below us, and so we don't have the time maybe on this podcast to go through those drafts. Maybe we will do it later, or as we go through the season, you might hear us mention it. So I just wanted to throw that out. That don't think this is like some like top player exclusive thing. If you're listening to the podcast and you haven't heard anything about NetPlay Classic League, I encourage you to tune in. If you're ever interested, always message Ducky Dawn. We're keeping like a wait list, and so I wanted to throw that out before people think that there's like only 2 leagues. There is many tiers and many different ways and many different data points that we're going to be able to pull from this classic season, which is super, super exciting.
All right. Well, hey, only more to come for NetPlay Classic League. We'll update you more every week, hopefully, on what's moving on in that league. We're going to talk a little bit more about the opposite sides of Classic League, being Stars On League, and the Classic League hosted by the man himself in this chat, Brew. We're heading on to the end of that. Brew, talk about it. What are some things you want to see on the next Stars On League?
Yeah, so in Stars On, our NetPlay League is not the traditional classic league. We have 9 teams instead of 6. I think it was a field of 108 characters, so we had to do some different listing in tiers. Definitely an experiment, and we were just talking the other day about we know so much more now having played. Who do we need to have 3 of? Who do we need to have 2 of? How can we rearrange these things to make next season even wackier? And I know people hate that.
Dude, Stars On is so weird.
I just hear the laughing. What is the most prime example of a character that's currently like a 3 of that we're
3
like,
Warios?
man, that's busted.
Yeah, I was about to say
Me
the
and
exact
Weekly
same
played
thing.
a series where I had Wario, and then there was a Wario at second and shortstop, and like it was just Wario-ception. There was just so much going on, and we were just laughing our asses off. We couldn't focus on the game.
So much Wario.
It was so much fun. I'll tell you that. That series was the best series I had of the Stars On League, but.
It was so funny watching Wario get a grounder straight to Wario, and then watching Wario throw to Wario to get Wario out.
Yeah,
like it's just funny stuff like that where you have like a field of like 3 Marios or something like an outfield of 3 Mario or whatever like wacky thing like can be done. It's just so funny to like watch like the Stars On League games.
The Boomerang Bros current team. Traded, so he inherited the team. We had someone drop out, but they had Bowser, and then it was double yellow Mages, double red Koopas, double red Bones. And after Boomerang Bro took over, he took advantage of the free agent pool and currently has all 3 Goombas on his team and has played multiple games with triple Goombas. I haven't watched that strategy, but Boomerang Bro is 30-8 since he took over.
It's crazy. His team is stacked.
One of his yellow Mages finished the season hitting 693 batting average, close to 700. So a lot of talk about the highest level of Mario Baseball. This on the other side, I would argue it's high-level Mario Baseball, but it's completely opposite than what you see in the Rimkey v. Krasny Stars On.
Definitely
I think it is so funny that you guys keep stats for each individual character.
Oh, yeah.
Like not even just like you have stats of Yellow Mage, you have stat of the Yellow Mage that's on Boomerang, like Yellow Mage 1 and Yellow Mage 2 that's on Boomerang Bros team. Like it like Wario 1, Wario 2, Wario 3. I think like each of them having their own individual stats is hilarious to me.
We've got it pretty detailed. And another point to the high level that we're playing at, the top 6 players in the league, number 1 is Toasty. Number 4 is Peach Beach, and then the rest like 2, 3, 5, and 6. Those 4 guys, 4 of the 8 who are in the top 8 for the Stars On Showdown. So we've got some of the best Stars On guys duking it out. It's been a long season. Playoffs should start soon, and I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, I can't wait till we reformat that league, and I can agree the duplicate characters need to be ironed out. Like to correct you there, like Boomerang Bros team's Bowser, 2 Bowser Juniors, 2 Yellow Mages, 2 Red Bones, a Red Koopa, and then 3 Goombas. Like that's crazy. And
forgot the double BJs.
Yeah, and we also have the injury thing with if you roll 69,
I was gonna say,
you're injured.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
what is that again?
It's just to mix it in. It's an injury thing. If you roll 69.
After each series, you roll for any non-captain, and it's just a random number generator, 1 through 100. If you hit 69, then they're out for the next series. So they're out for 16. We had an instance where Peach Beach's Hammer Bro got injured. Peach Beach forgot, waited a couple days till his next game, forgot to take him out. So there was a PED scandal. And as commissioner, I had to lay down the law, suspended Hammer Bro for 6 games for taking steroids to overcome his injury.
Illegal painkillers.
Yeah, exactly. He's popping some greens in the dugout.
Playing with a broken wrist or something? Yeah.
ACL tear.
Oh.
I will say though, even though it has to get ironed out, I would love to see a duplicate character like large scale classic coming to Stars Off too.
This is the way to go.
Because I mean, it's funny from, like you said, the standpoint of like, oh, you see Wario throwing to Wario with Wario going to second. Like, okay, that's just hilarious, and I would love to see that. That's like a good spectator thing. But like adding how many more players we could have in a league, like if we could get a league of like 12 or 15 of like, imagine a classic league of the top 15 on the ELO leaderboard. That would be insane. I mean, we could keep going to, like I said, or you could say you have 14 real good friends on the server. Why only pick 5? Pick 14 and play with them. It just adds how many more games and how many more matchups to have, and many more team compositions. So I think what Stars On is doing for their classic, I think, could revolutionize what Stars Off could do for a format too. And I love the injuries. I think it's been kind of like kept on the down low, but I hope it comes out of hiding for playoffs just so everyone gets some more eyes on it.
I think my favorite thing of this is having an 11-man roster. Just you can change up your whole style. I think Brew's the one that introduced me to this, by having like a 3 pitching rotation. I pitch Blue Blob, I pitch Walu, and I pitch Dixie, maybe Diddy, to switch out in and off. Just having a rotation, swapping in new characters in certain spots. Like I'll take out Red Para for a game. I'll take out Diddy for a game, put someone else in. Just mixing my team up, having my opponent guess how I have to make my defense to hit around it. It just switches it up and kind of elevates it. It's a 3-game set for every series. You play it, everyone at home and away at a different stadium. It's something new and it's very different. I feel like NCL can learn from it, and I feel like we can learn from NCL. And Classic's not finished yet. It's not in a state where we need to finish it. There's a lot more to learn, a lot more to test, and this could explode in popularity.
For those that don't know, NCL is the Net Play Classic League. It's just the abbreviation we have for it.
But yeah, all right, Clutch. I'll let you do your thing. I know we've been passing this off for like the past 2 episodes. Your MBA Cup. You want to talk about that?
Sure. So we can close out with this week. So the MBA Cup stands for the Mario Baseball Association Cup. And the reason I take that name is from the Football Association over in England. If any of you are fans of what obviously the globe calls football, we call soccer here in America. You probably are familiar with the FA Cup in England, which basically every team in England is entered into a gigantic tournament and tries to compete for this cup. And obviously, there are the Premier League teams, which is the top, I believe it's 30 in the Premier League. Don't quote me on that. My European football structure is a little rusty. But those are the top teams in England competing for the top title each year. And they are present in this tournament, and they are usually the teams that win it. But then there is a promotion relegation system. So there's a tier below that. And those teams are entered in the tournament. And then there are 2 more leagues below that. And that's like the end of professional football in England. And then there are 6 more semi-pro tiers below that of leagues that play. And so I thought, what if we could bring that to Mario Baseball? Let's have a tournament where the so-called bottom feeders of Mario Baseball, which, by the way, can still be really good players, have them face off, and specifically have them face off against people of similar skill. So like if you were like to seed a tournament, like maybe like only 1 or 2 seedings off, have really competitive games at the beginning, advance through the tournament, and then let's start dropping in the big names. Let's start dropping in your Boomerang Bros and your Chris Toasties, and then let's start dropping in your Clutches and your Joe Baseballs and your Crit Nicks. And then right before we go to top 8 in that top 16 round, unleash Remke, unleash Krasny, call them our bosses of Mario Baseball. And so basically the idea of this tournament is see who can make the longest run and follow that, and then see what happens when the top players come in cold, and with a long bye, do they come in and dominate, or do they struggle early? And then see who can make the top 8, and then we'll go double elim from there. Everything else is single elim. Basically, the whole idea of this tournament is I want to do it over a couple months. So like you will play about 1 game a week if you enter this tournament. I want it to be a side event to Stars on Showdown, MPSS, any other events going on. I don't want this to take up people's time, every week for a long time. But like play one game a week for this cup. Let's see who comes out on top. Let's run it. I'm going to say 4 times a year. I think I'm going to run it coinciding with the end of ranked seasons, which we've talked about doing a spring, summer, fall, winter structure. And let's run it 4 times a year and see who can take this prestigious cup that I hope it becomes. But yeah, I really want to stress for people that are listening to the podcast and might be interested in this, when it does come out, I think we're going to try and do our first one after the next MPSS, because I know people are really waiting for that. So I want to give that a spotlight for number 11. But after MPSS 11 happens, this tournament will start right after. And so I want it to be fun for everyone joining. That's why, like I said, the idea of playing like really closely tiered games at the beginning. And then the prize pool will be structured with the idea of I want to reward people that make a long run. So there will be a prize for whoever has the biggest upset in terms of like seeded difference. And then it'll be prizing for top 3 beyond that. So it's something new I wanted to bring. I want to try out. I hope that it's like one of these massive tournaments. What we had 64 people in the last MPSS 10. I'm hoping we break that, because like I said, with only 1 game a week, I'm hoping that opens it up for a lot of people to join. And like I said, I wanted to take the chance to talk about it and talk about what it stands for, because I think at first glance it might not be totally obvious. And then like I said, I think I want this to be something that runs alongside the other big tournaments. So I'll turn it over to my other podcast host to hear. I know I've dropped some nuggets to some people, but I'm curious what they would like to see from a longer form tournament like this, because we had Net Play Summer Series last year, but we haven't had a consistent like long form like play over a couple months, a little at a time tournament before in the scene.
I think that this is the thing we need. Like, we need a long form tournament that is like, hey, this is like the shit to be in. There's so much, like, you're branching it differently than we've ever had it before. So I feel like this is going to shake up a lot of different mindsets going into it. The bottom tier players still have a chance. If they can prove themselves, they can make it to the end, I think, in an easier way. Because you have to face people your own rank, or maybe lower if you're lower seeded, and you just keep rising and rising up. I feel like this idea, if executed well, which I think you are going to do, I have praise in you. You are a very smart person. This could be the top tier tournament, like the one that everyone wants to be in. You could take the crown from Cokes, I'm thinking.
I don't want to do that necessarily. Like I said, he can have the short form crown. I'll take the long one. That's fine. But I think, Raviannn, you bring up a great point of the idea of, even in an NPSS, say you make a crazy run out of pools, then you still have to be in the top 16, and you're probably facing someone that the deck is stacked against you right away at top cut. Versus if you win your first game in the early round, then you probably have another person pretty close to you. And then maybe once you get into like round 3, round 4, then you start talking like upsets. But like when you have to pull off an upset from the beginning and keep doing it to make a long run, I think that's really tough. And then that one really big upset kind of gets buried. And I don't want that to happen. I think people that can make really good runs from the start of the tournament, I think should be highlighted. And I hope that's kind of what this format does. And like I said, it kind of opens up more eyes, because like I said, with the top players not being involved early in the tournament, people are going to want to watch the people that are in it from the beginning. And so I think that's kind of what I'm hoping to see.
Well, anything else to add on the NBA Cup, guys?
I'm excited. Any tournaments I'm excited for. The more the better. I like playing the game. So the more tournaments I can enter, the more fun we can have. It's a good kind of stress to play in a tournament. It's a good kind of get the feeling of excitement in playing. And I like anything that encourages more people to join and encourages, a lot of people hesitate to enter tournaments, especially we've been a little bit spoiled as a community, I think, when it comes to tournaments, where we've if I'm not mistaken, I don't think we've ever had a buy-in tournament.
Nope.
But we've still had prize pools from people donating very generously towards the prize pool. So I think we've been a little bit spoiled on that front, and we haven't really gotten that, like, that local feel, or like that big tournament feel where, pay a few bucks, like whether it's $2, $5 to get in, and you make the run that you can in the tournament. And it's interesting to see how that might play out in the community if that kind of thing gets introduced. I've been thinking about it, kind of running some polls and some numbers here and there about gauging community interest if we went to that kind of thing. And I think people have a kind of adverse opinion, I guess, on it, because they're like, well, isn't that just donating money to Remke, Krasi, Hells, Cactus, like these guys? Like, and it's like, no, because I mean, we still have to win, right? Like, I mean, I lost a ranked game. I got Gentleman's Mercied by Boomerang Bro the other day in ranked stars off, just normal ladder. Gentleman's Mercy is losing by 10 or more in the 9th inning, so you didn't technically get mercied, but Gentleman's Mercy. But I mean, he beat me pretty bad that game. I almost lost to Faceman, the winner of Mid-Tier Mania. I think I had a 9th inning comeback, if I'm not mistaken. And it went into extra innings, and I ended up winning in extra innings. I think I hit like a 2-run PD shot to tie it up and send it into extra innings in the 9th, and then I ended up winning by like a run. So like anything can happen, especially when it's a best of one. It leaves very little room for error, and anything can happen in this game. So never get discouraged when you get seeded against me or Krasi or Hells or Cactus or any of the players that, when they're active, can be huge threats in bracket. Just play your best game, and you always have a shot.
Also, I think we're spoiled with the community is small enough that you can still like catch games against Hells and Remke and Krasi, etc. If we blow up enough, eventually the only chance you will get is if you get seeded in a tournament against these top players to take your shot at these giants, or as I'm going to call them, because I'm actually going to call them this for the MBA Cup, the bosses of Mario Baseball. They're literally going to have brackets named after them. Like, that's kind of your cost to rub elbows with the top. And by the way, I think there should be free tournaments always. I don't think
absolutely. I completely agree.
But I guess for people that are kind of hesitant to, if they ever see a buy-in tournament, like, why would I want to buy in? Even if you expect yourself to have a minuscule chance of winning and you don't see it as a wise investment, look at it as an opportunity cost to, like I said, play some games against some of the top people. Even if you think you only have a 1 in 100 shot, well, guess what? Take it as a learning experience, or get your one shot out of 100 and have the story of a lifetime. So I understand the aversion to it, and also I appreciate it because I don't want the community to get expensive. No one should be priced out of playing a game that, at this point, if you have a $20 GameCube controller and the right PC equipment, you can play this game for a fixed cost. There's not a variable cost to it, and so I hope.
And of course, a copy of Mario Superstar Baseball for the Nintendo GameCube that you can directly rip onto your computer.
Yep, which everyone has because we're such big fans of this game. So
of course,
yeah. That's kind of my take on pay to enter tournaments. Is if you look at it as a donation, then yeah, it's not fun. But I think that's the way to look at it, where you don't see it as a donation. But I understand that mindset too. So I do want to acknowledge that if we ever start adding paid tournaments, but I hope people aren't turned off by it too much. Like I said, as long as there's also a space for free tournaments.
Just makes things more competitive. Well, I think that's a good way to wrap it up today. Just hitting the hour and 10 mark. I want to thank you four for coming on today for this episode. Anything you guys want to say before we end it off here?
go ahead, Clutch. Go ahead.
Let's say I want to bring back viewer comments next week. So if you have some questions for us or topics you want us to cover, leave them in the comments.
Big thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, talk about, Classic League, talk about Clutch's tournament, talk about any other tournaments you want to see, or, your thoughts on buy-in tournaments in general. Yeah, again, huge shout out with Krasy for the Charged Amount set. I think it was a great set, very well played on both of our parts. And I'm just super excited for the future of this community and the future of our, competitive tournaments and, getting Hells back into the mix, hopefully getting, an active Cactus, an active Matty Ice, an active, get some of the guys that have truly been top dogs in this community that have proven they can win tournaments, get them really rolling. And I think this could be a really, really fun tournament setting. Yeah, that's about all I got.
All right. Well, hey, leave all comments you want us to answer about anything Mario Baseball related. I want to thank everyone for tuning in episode 4 of the Mario Baseball podcast, your one-stop shop for anything Mario Baseball. Leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on YouTube. Like the video, subscribe, do whatever you got to do. Show some support, share it around. We appreciate everything you guys do. As I always say, folks, thanks for watching. Adios and goodbye. Thank you for watching the Mario Superstar Baseball podcast. If you enjoyed this one, you can look at the other one that will be right in front of you right here. Yes, right in front of your face. Make sure to watch that episode. I'm not lying. Please watch that episode. It's right in front of you. Just click the goddamn button.